Hey guys, Deathy here. So I just wanted to give you guys a quick little recap video for the patch. I didn't really know the best way to do this, so I tried to include different clips in this video that were, that showed the different map changes, talking about the items, talking about the heroes. Let me know what you guys think about this video. Sorry if I sound a little bit tired in some of the clips. I played a lot today, some on stream and some off stream due to unfortunate issues. Highly encourage you guys to check out my Twitch. I'm also streaming on YouTube as an experiment, and that seemed to have gone really well. So I'll probably be live on both platforms when I stream. So watch on whatever you like. Anyway, this video is not meant to be a analysis of the patch. It's more so just a highlight of what things matter in the patch. So I don't go over everything. I just go over the changes that actually matter. I don't go over all the little number changes that they do to a bunch of abilities and items. I go over the highlights of the patch. I'll have another video talking about the biggest winners and the biggest losers of the patch. Spoiler, Hayes is probably a winner, but we'll see. But yeah, that'll be a different video. This is really just for, centralizing all the information related to the patch. All right, enjoy. They have added wall jumping, which does not consume stamina, and looks like this. You need to jump into the wall and then jump away from the wall at a different angle. This can be done in a lot of ways in order to gain height. For example, here you can do a wall jump and try to save yourself 1 stamina. This can be replicated on a lot of ledges. So something before that would have been impossible to get up, you can now get up wall jumping. They have reworked teleporter locations, which now look like this on this side, as well as added this extra side teleporter on the side of the map. These are mirrored on both sides and allow you to change side of the map much more efficiently than you could before. The underground teleporters have remained largely unchanged. They have added ropes in various areas of the map where there used to be jump pads, as well as other areas where there were not jump pads. How ropes work is you press spacebar to get on top of them, and then you can move up and down them using W or S. And as you can see, you can slide down much faster than you can go up, and you can also shoot while being on the rope. You cannot, however, shoot while moving on the rope. So as I'm moving, I cannot shoot, but if I stop, I can shoot. They've added some more jump pads. For example, here at the tier 2 walker, you've got the jump pad here to get out or get into position. So let's say you're the attacking team, you could be using this to get on top of this roof. They've added some new juke areas, such as this one right here, next to the tier 1 tower. This area allows you to access the roof directly without going all the way on top. This also allows you to go through the lane from here, which could be an interesting ganking angle. They've added access to some roofs that you didn't have access to before, such as this one right above the theater, which has a golden statue as well as some boxes. You can also access the opposite roof right here for an extra golden statue, some other boxes, as well as a set of stairs that gives you access to another roof that can be accessed through a rope as well. Overall, there are a lot more boxes in this area and a lot more potential for funny plays. For example, if someone is farming the tier 3 camp, you can actually come all the way from this angle and go on them like this. As far as the overall meta changes go, one big shift that they've decided to do this patch is they have removed the fact that Guardians give AP. Guardians no longer give AP. Instead, AP is now added to the following souls level: 3,500, 5,200, 8,000, and 9,700 souls. What this means for the meta has yet to be determined, but my prediction is that getting all the Guardians has now a much more different goal than it used to. Now getting all the Guardians gives you instead an extra flex slots. So you're not necessarily so incentivized as to get one Guardian, but getting all the Guardians is still very important early on. Let's now move on to the weapon changes. So I'm going to focus on the weapon changes that are impactful. I'm not really going to go over all these small adjustments. For example, Hollow Point rounds has 5 extra Spirit Shield. Even though that is a change, I'm not going to cover it. So I'm only going to focus on what I think matters. The first interesting change has to do with active reload. Active reload has been nerfed quite significantly. So active reload used to give 30% lifesteal during its effect. Now it gives 22%, and its effect now only lasts 7 seconds as opposed to 8. So that is a very significant change when it comes to the item. Kinetic Dash has received a similar treatment, only gaining 25% extra fire rate instead of 30 now. Swift Striker has been added 10% ammo on top of the other stats it already gave, making it a much better item for haze, for example. Toxic Bullet's healing reduction has been increased to minus 65% from its previous point at minus 55%, now making it the highest healing reduction item in the game by quite a large margin. Buy this item if you're struggling with healing. They've added a new tier 3 item called Headhunter. What this item does is landing a headshot deals bonus damage, heals you for a portion of your max HP, and briefly grants you bonus movement speed. The headshot bonus damage is 140, the heal is 8% of your health, and it gives you 2 meters per second move speed for 3 seconds. This passive is on a 6-second cooldown. This item, in my opinion, is extremely broken, and you guys should all be buying it in your games before it gets nerfed. Siphon Bullets has received a significant nerf as well, going from 40% extra weapon damage to 28%. I do believe that this item is still good. However, the nerf is certainly significant, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be rushing it on Shiv anymore. Onto the Vitality items. Divine Barrier has received a significant rework, now granting ability range instead of bullet resist and health regen. So now it gives ability range and sprint speed, making it a much better item for heroes like Bebop that are in need of ability range as well as positioning, for example. Both Combat Barrier as well as Enchanter's Barrier have received significant buffs. Combat Barrier now gives 8% fire rate while the shield is active, and Enchanter's Barrier now gives 8% cooldown reduction while the shield is active. Reactive Barrier has received another significant nerf, now only lasting 9 seconds instead of the 13 seconds that it lasted previously, making it much closer in duration to Divine Barrier, which is 5 seconds. Leech has received a significant nerf, no longer offering anti-heal reduction. Instead, they've moved the anti-heal reduction to a different item, Healing Booster, which has lost its bullet resist in exchange for 15% anti-heal reduction, or as they call it, resistance to healing reduction. Now, it was more than 15% on Leech, so this is an overall buff to anti-heal, making it so that there are less answers to anti-heal items. Unstoppable has received quite a significant buffs for certain heroes, as you can now cast it while you are channeling. The cooldown was reduced by 5 seconds. The cast while channeling is particularly useful for heroes that want to channel their abilities first and wait to see if they need to pop Unstoppable. These heroes include Haze, Seven, Dynamo, and some others. Soul Rebirth has also received a significant buff, now granting an additional 12 spirit power, as well as an additional 3% cooldown reduction from 15% to now 18%. As far as spirit items, Spirit Strike has received a significant buff, making the debuff last 13 seconds instead of 8 seconds. The debuff is minus 12% spirit resist, so that hasn't been changed, but the duration is much longer, meaning you don't need to melee as often to have it. Withering Whip has been reworked. It now has a much shorter cooldown, from 40 seconds to 25 seconds. The fire rate slow went from minus 40 to minus 30, but now it gives 8% fire rate instead of the 20% ammo it gave before. Suppressor has once again been nerfed. For those who are not familiar, this item has been nerfed pretty much ever since it's been in the game. For the past 3 months, this item has only been getting nerfed, so I'm not surprised to see it nerfed again. Now the fire rate reduction is 25% instead of the 30% it used to be, and it lasts 2 seconds, which has not been changed. It has also lost 0.5 health regen, but I don't think that's very significant. Rapid Recharge has lost 1 extra charge, going from 3 bonus ability charges to only 2. However, the time between charges is now 55% faster, as opposed to the 40% faster it used to be, and it now gives 25% cooldown reduction, as opposed to 20%. Effectively, this is a buff for some characters and a nerf from others. Thinking about you, Lash. Knockdown has received some adjustments. The cast range is now 45 meters instead of 35 meters, making it even better at countering 7. However, the stun duration was lower, and the delay to activate it was also lowered. So it goes off faster, however, the stun only lasts 0.9 seconds instead of 1.25 seconds. Magic Carpet has received a significant buffs to its barriers. Now, it used to give 400 bullet shield, 400 spirit shield while you were on it. Now, those barriers last 16 seconds after you use it, meaning that you effectively have 50% uptime on those barriers. Considering the previous barrier rework, this is definitely a significant buff, as barriers now give more bonuses when they're active. Boundless Spirit has also received a buff, giving now 25% weapon damage. The only hero that I think this is very significant for is Seven, as he always likes to build Boundless Spirit and doesn't mind some weapon damage. Most heroes won't be too affected by this change, but it now makes it a little bit more viable for heroes that like to shoot their gun as well. Moving on to hero changes. Now, once again, I will be focusing only on the changes that I think are very impactful. Abram's animation on the zipline has been updated so that he now once again does pull-ups on the zipline. This is a huge buff to Abrams. No, I'm just kidding, but it is funny. Nothing else about Abrams significant was really changed. His regen was nerfed a little bit in terms of the time, but nothing super significant. Bebop's hook no longer targets allies by default. It can now instead be cast using Alt Cast, which is middle mouse by default, to target allies. Hyper Beam can also be cancelled using parry, which makes it a little bit better when someone's trying to charge a melee on you, and you can just parry right away. Dynamo's gun damage has been nerfed from 15 to 13, which is a very, very significant nerf to his overall damage. Those going gun Dynamo are going to be suffering a little bit. Another change is that Black Hole Radius has been nerfed by 1 meter, which doesn't seem like much, but certainly will be significant. Grey Talon has received significant changes to his charge shot, his first ability. The collision box has been nerfed somewhat by 8%. The damage has been nerfed a little bit, and now Grey Talon's fire rate now scales with spirit. What this means is that this is what your fire rate looks like without any spirit items. Let me cancel that and shoot it a little bit. And now if I buy a ton of spirit items, this is what my fire rate looks like. It doesn't scale much, but as you can see, it's somewhat faster. Grey Talon can now also use multiple air dashes during rain of arrows, allowing him to reposition more easily. Haze is probably one of the biggest winners of this patch. She has received many buffs which are very significant. I know in the past I've said that Haze was not that good of a character. Now it's a bit early to say, but it seems like she's back on the map. Haze has received, first of all, a bullet damage increase from 5.3 to 5.6. For those who are newer to the game, base bullet damage is very significant when it comes to DPS, as it scales with increases and it scales with additional items as well. So a 0.3 increase in base weapon damage is absolutely massive. Other than that, Haze has received a change to Fixation, her second upgrade. Now it's plus 40 max stacks. Essentially, this is an extra 2 damage per bullet that you can go get, which is another huge buff. And on top of that, the Bullet Dance now provides plus 2 weapon damage by default. And this is without the additional that you can get from putting 1 point. So if you have 2 points in your passive, let me just get Swift Striker to get max stacks on this dummy. Get max stacks. So as you can see, I have no items other than the Swift Striker, and I will ult. And my ult did 1400 damage with 0 items. Swift Striker only. So make of that what you will. Haze ult is kind of insane now. Infernus has received various nerfs. For example, his flame dash speed is now affected by slows, so if you get slowed during flame dash, it will affect you. His catalyst has received various changes. I'm not going to go over them because it's mostly just number changes, but just know that overall Infernus has been nerfed. However, I think he's still going to remain a top character as the nerfs aren't too significant. Ivy has received significant reworks. Ivy can now carry any ally without them being silenced. However, while an ally is being carried, they do 50% less damage. This means that If Ivy wants to carry, for example, 7 or Haze, they will do 50% less damage in their ult. However, it'll still work perfectly fine with an ult like Dynamo ult. I really thought that this wasn't going to stay in the game, as I thought it was kind of silly, but the developers have doubled down on it for now, and so we'll see if it's still broken, and if it is, what they'll do about it. Kelvin has received various changes. However, the most impactful one is the change to his beam, which now deals 80% max slow. Before, it was 60%. This is both movement speed as well as fire rate slow. So with just default beam, you do 80% fire rate slow now, as well as movement slow. It's very significant, and with suppressor, if he has that and suppressor, it feels like you simply can't shoot. Our boy Lash has 2 lines in the patch notes. However, those 2 lines are very, very significant. The first line is actually not that significant. It's improved firing arm position to be a little more out of the way from the reticle. So this is just to give you better visibility. I honestly can't really notice it. The second line, however, is grapple no longer gives a stamina charge on use. For those who had been watching my stream, what you could do is you could grapple around, use some stamina, keep grappling around, and then every time you would get an extra stamina back, so you could basically just fly in the air. This is still sort of possible, however, you can no longer get as much stamina as you could before because it doesn't give you stamina back. This is a pretty significant nerf to Lash's current playstyle, and people are already theory crafting new playstyles for Lash. Everyone's favorite hero, 7, has been buffed and nerfed at the same time. So, the first significant change is Stormcloud Spirit Power scaling was reduced from 1.1 to 0.8. Spirit scaling is the number right here on the ability that says how much damage you get per point of spirit you add. So if you have 100 spirit, you will gain 80 DPS on your ult. This is a roughly 30% DPS nerf. A little bit more, actually, I believe, but roughly 30% DPS nerf on his ult. However, now 7's ult expands significantly faster. In fact, about twice as fast as it used to. So if you ult, you will be getting to max range on your ult 50% faster than you did in the past, which means now you really need to use line of sights or cancel 7's ult in order to deal with it. You can't simply run away from it. Also, his ult now provides 20% bullet resist by default, and this can be on top of the 35% bullet resist if you put the first point in it, which means you get a total of 55% bullet resist with just 1 point. Our Wonder Boy Shiv has received a couple different changes. However, I don't think he's gutted. I'm going to go over them briefly, and I'm working on a new guide right now so that we can adapt to these changes as well as the Siphon Bullet changes to see how we can play Shiv and still dominate. The first change that really hurts Shiv is his weapon damage has been nerfed as well as his health growth per boon. What this means is that generally speaking, he's going to be doing a little bit less weapon damage and he's going to have a little bit less health. This is not going to change everything, but it certainly hurts. The second change that's significant is they've nerfed the tier 2 slice and dice from 100 damage to 85 damage. This is also quite significant as you're losing on 15 damage, which might not seem like much, but when it's a difference between getting a kill and someone living with 50 health, it matters. Now the change that hurts the most is the cooldown reduction on the slice and dice. I figured that that's what they were going to nerf. It makes a lot of sense. So now cooldown reduction doesn't work on creeps really. I mean, you get minus 1 second for creeps instead of -2. So when you're farming, for example, tier 3 camps, instead of getting minus 6 second per dash, you're going to be getting minus 3 second cooldown reduction per dash, which means you're going to be getting only a total of minus 6 seconds. This is a significant nerf to his farming speed. However, I think he's still totally fine. The only other change is he only defers 30% of incoming damage instead of 35. This is also quite a significant nerf to his tankiness. However, I think the character is still fundamentally very strong, as deferred damage is always going to be really good. And I think that he's still going to be totally fine. We just need to figure out exactly what the build is on him. Viscous, aka Goo Boy, has received quite the list of reworks. First of all, his gun has been changed very significantly. As you can see here, the projectile speed is significantly faster. For those who had not seen the previous Goo gun, I don't have a clip, but it felt a lot more like Warden's projectile. This projectile is quite fast. So that's the first thing. It also has improved damage and scaling, though they didn't give us exact numbers. It also has an alternative fire, which is this, which feels a little bit like Yamato's right click. However, the mechanics of it and the gravity of it is a little bit different. As you can see, it'll explode after a certain point, regardless of whether it impacts or not, which means that you can be using it to just hit people around corners if you know approximately where they are, just by throwing it in the air at the right time. Some of the other reworks include Puddle Punch. Puddle Punches now has a tier 2 that improves its damage. Before, that used to be the tier 3 upgrade. So this is very nice for him to get some early damage early with Puddle Punch. It actually does a surprising amount of damage now. And now it deals 110% of light melee instead of 100%. His ball was also changed a little bit. Now you get a little bit more acceleration. The UI was changed, so you have an arrow that lets you know which direction you're going in, which used to be a little bit confusing before. And the spirit scaling was improved, which means you'll do more damage as you build more spirit items than you did before. To finish it off, Yamato has received some minor changes. For example, her power slash now only takes 1.4 seconds to charge to full instead of 1.5 seconds. The collision radius has been reduced by 8%, which means that it'll be slightly harder to hit people around corners, for example. I know I was getting hit all the time around corners and things like that. And other than that, Crimson slash radius has been increased by 1 meter, which is the third ability, so this ability right here. That's pretty much it for the changes this patch. A lot of things are going to be impacted in the metagame by these changes, particularly the AP changes, the flex slot changes. I've played a couple games today already, and so I'm going to be streaming a lot probably tomorrow, this weekend, reviewing demos, etc. So feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content and if you want to see more like it. Let me know what you guys would like to see in future patch update videos. So if you guys don't know, patches come out every 2 weeks, and my intent is to cover all of them with a video that's going to be a little bit of a summary for them all. Anyways, thanks a lot for the support, guys. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.